Today we're going to be featuring a very important movement in the history of Christianity called fundamentalism. And I think there's some negative connotations that sometimes go along with that word, some stereotypes, but we're going to clarify that today. We're also going to be featuring the Fundamentals, which originally was a 12-volume set, an incredible work of theology, now available in a 2-volume set, which you can see here. But fundamentalism, what is it? I think it's important that we get a historical perspective on that first and just kind of get a bit of a historical context. The movement really began, I would say, in the very early 20th century. So we're talking about, goodness, probably all the way back to 1910. Probably that first 5 years of that, maybe 1910 through 1915 is when it was really becoming to grow and really creating its roots there. And when you think of fundamentalism, the main leaders in that group, I would say, were B.B. Warfield. Certainly Dwight L. Moody is a name that's mentioned, as well as John Nelson Darby. Conservative Christians who, really had a goal of upholding and protecting orthodox doctrine. And that's why I can really get behind fundamentalism. But I think it's just really important to get the context beyond just the historical context. What the movement really is about is that it rejects liberalism as a whole in the church. That was really beginning to creep in. They saw that as a threat to the gospel. They saw that as a threat to Orthodox Christianity. And it was, and it certainly is to this day. And that's why I think fundamentalist roots can still be prevalent and appropriate in today's Christianity. As I was mentioning earlier, fundamentalism really can be perceived to have kind of a negative connotation, but it also can be perceived to have a positive stance as well. It really is optimistic, and when you look at how it embraced technology, and one of the main reasons it embraced technology, as Ryan Reeves has said, is due to the fact that it saw technology as a way to advance the gospel and to evangelize. So getting back to kind of the historical perspective, in the 19th and 20th centuries, there really was an increase in, as I said, progressive liberalism. And the fundamentalists were really, they were the conservative breakoff groups. So they could sometimes, I like to sometimes say that they could be compared, and I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I would say they could be sometimes compared to the separatists that went on as well in the 17th century, because they were a breakoff group. This is really important, or was very important, still is, because the major tenets of Orthodox Christianity were really being challenged. And so that, again, was one of the reasons for the movement and for the success of the movement, and the motivation of the movement. And I don't even like to say movement, because sometimes that also can kind of come off a little bit negative. But one of the guys who was really instrumental as far as the leadership as fundamentalism kind of grew was one of the original Princetonians, and that was J. Gresham Machen. And that's a name a lot of folks know, because he was really instrumental in countering the liberalism that was seeping into Princeton. And then he created Westminster Seminary. Westminster Theological Seminary was kind of the answer seminary to liberalism, which started to just really become viral in Princeton. So what is fundamentalism? Before we get into these two works, there are really 5 major tenets to fundamentalism. The first one is the inerrancy of the Bible. The second one is the truthfulness of the miracles. Substitutionary atonement, underline that 3 or 4 times, strong emphasis on that. The virgin birth and the resurrection of Christ. Now, these 5 tenets are not necessarily all inclusive to fundamentalism, but it certainly are the main highlights. And these volumes, the fundamentals, are 2 of the, basically the entire work, as I had said at the top of the video, originally was a 12-volume set. It's been abridged, slightly abridged, down to 2 volumes, and this is just a wonderful thing to have in your library if you adhere to conservative, orthodox, Reformed Christianity. Then I would highly recommend this 2-volume set of the Fundamentals. One other work as a good primer that is a great classic work that really dives into fundamentalism is from J.I. Packer, and that was written in 1958. He wrote a book called Fundamentalism and the Word of God, and I highly recommend that one as well. So if you're really would like to adhere to holding up the orthodox, conservative Christian values and countering liberalism, then I certainly don't shy away from being called a fundamentalist.